A high school girls' basketball game turned into the center of a nationwide debate when a Christian team faced off against a transgender athlete. With emotions running high and the spotlight on the court, the matchup was about more than just basketball. It was a battle over fairness, identity, and the future of women's sports. California stands firm against Trump's order. A high school girls' basketball playoff game in California is stirring up debate as a Christian school team prepares to face a transgender athlete on the court. This comes after former President Donald Trump signed an executive order banning transgender women from playing in girls' sports at federally funded schools. But California is pushing back, allowing trans athletes to continue competing. Despite the federal order, the state's governing body for high school sports, the California Interscholastic Federation, CIF, has made it clear that they follow California law. Since 2014, the law has allowed students to participate in sports based on their gender identity, regardless of what their official records say. That means transgender girls can compete in girls' sports if they identify as female, a game that sparks debate. Recently, the game featured San Francisco Waldorf School's girls' basketball team, which includes an openly transgender player. Their opponent, Cornerstone Christian, a private Christian school, has decided to play the game despite the ongoing controversy. Not only this, earlier this school year, the same transgender athlete played on Waldorf's girls' volleyball team. That led to another Christian school, Stone Ridge Christian, refusing to compete in a playoff match back in November. They chose to forfeit instead of playing against a transgender athlete. Federal investigation. Well, this decision comes at a time when CIF is already under federal investigation. The U.S. Department of Education, DOE, and the Office of Civil Rights, OCR, are looking into whether CIF is violating Title IX by allowing transgender athletes to compete in girls' sports. Beyond this, Candace Jackson, a deputy general counsel for the DOE, made it clear that the investigation is ongoing. She stated that CIF, as an organization that oversees school sports and receives federal funding, must follow federal law. CIF sets the parameters under which schools compete in these playoffs, and they have a responsibility as recipients of federal funds to comply with Title IX, she said. Despite this pressure, CIF isn't backing down. They continue to follow California law, which supports transgender students playing on teams that align with their gender identity. The controversy grows. Unfortunately, the controversy has only intensified as more schools and lawmakers get involved. Some California schools and parents have spoken out against allowing transgender athletes to compete with girls, arguing that it creates an unfair advantage. In one case, parents at Martin Luther King High School in Riverside even filed a lawsuit after a girls' cross-country runner lost her spot on the varsity team to a transgender athlete. In another incident in San Diego, a middle school faced backlash for allowing a transgender student to use the girls' locker room. This sparked heated debates at school board meetings and among local parents. A star athlete at the center of the debate. But the fact is, much of the debate centers around one athlete, a transgender girl playing for San Francisco Waldorf. This player has been making headlines since last fall when they played on Waldorf's volleyball team. The situation escalated when the player had an outstanding performance in a recent basketball game, scoring 29 points. Some critics say that transgender athletes have an unfair advantage, claiming that biological males retain physical strength even after transitioning. Supporters, however, argue that all students should have the right to play sports based on their gender identity. Not to mention, but the players' involvement in both volleyball and basketball has put San Francisco Waldorf at the center of this national debate. It also raises questions about whether the school receives federal funding, which would determine whether they must follow Trump's executive order. While Waldorf is a private school, they compete in a league that includes public schools, making the situation even more complicated. Christian schools take different approaches. Along with this, Stone Ridge Christian's decision to forfeit their volleyball game in November drew national attention. Some praised the school for standing by their beliefs, while others criticized them for excluding a transgender athlete. In response to their forfeit, former NCAA swimmer and transgender sports critic Riley Gaines visited Stone Ridge Christian to honor them for their decision. She has been outspoken about her belief that transgender women should not compete in female sports, arguing that it takes opportunities away from cisgender girls. Unlike Stone Ridge Christian, Cornerstone Christian has chosen to play their upcoming basketball game. The decision wasn't easy. The school had a meeting with parents, coaches, and players before making their final call. The debate over transgender athletes in girls' sports is far from over. With lawsuits, investigations, and new laws being proposed, the issue is becoming one of the biggest topics in high school sports today. Finally, the much-anticipated girls' high school basketball playoff game between San Francisco Waldorf and Cornerstone Christian finally took place. But there was an unexpected twist. San Francisco Waldorf's transgender athlete was absent. The game had gained national attention due to ongoing debates about transgender athletes competing in girls' sports. But in the end, the controversy played out without the player on the court. A game without its most talked-about player. Well, no doubt, San Francisco Waldorf had a season record of 9-8, largely led by their transgender athlete. Many had expected a competitive game, but without their key player, the team struggled. Cornerstone Christian, which had decided to play despite the controversy, dominated the game, winning 56-30. There was no official explanation for why the transgender athlete was missing. San Francisco Waldorf remained silent on the issue and did not respond to requests for comment. The absence of the player left many wondering whether the intense media spotlight and ongoing political battles had played a role in the decision. Protesters arrive, then leave. Before the game, a group of protesters arrived, prepared to express their opposition to transgender athletes competing in girls' sports. Some held signs, ready to make their voices heard. However, once they realized the transgender athlete was not present, they reportedly decided not to move forward with their demonstration. The absence of the player seemed to take the air out of the controversy, at least for the night. However, the bigger battle over transgender inclusion in sports was far from over. Lawmakers and legal battles. Above all, as the national debate raged on, California lawmakers took steps to fight back against Trump's order. Earlier in the year, Assemblymember Kate Sanchez introduced a bill to ban transgender athletes from competing in girls' sports. And in February, Assemblymember Bill Essayli introduced another bill with similar goals. These legislative efforts aim to reverse California's existing policy and align the state with Trump's new federal rules. At the same time, lawsuits against California's policy were piling up. Parents, athletes, and advocacy groups were pushing back, arguing that transgender participation in female sports was unfair. Some cases even cited instances of cisgender girls losing athletic opportunities to transgender competitors. A similar story in college basketball. While the high school basketball game ended without its most controversial player, a different transgender athlete was making headlines at the college level. Harriet McKenzie, a transgender basketball player, led Vancouver Island University, VU, to a conference championship victory over Columbia Christian College, CBC. McKenzie scored 21 points and grabbed 10 rebounds, securing both the win and the tournament MVP title. The championship game was the latest chapter in a heated rivalry between the two teams, one that had been marked by off-the-court tensions as well. Earlier in the season, CBC's head coach, Taylor Claggett, had reportedly expressed frustration about McKenzie's participation in women's sports. McKenzie later accused CBC players and coaches of targeting the athlete unfairly. Beyond this, things escalated when McKenzie posted a video on Instagram, claiming that Claggett had confronted an athletic staff member and complained about McKenzie playing in the league. The controversy didn't stop there. McKenzie also alleged that a CBC player intentionally knocked the athlete to the ground during a game. Fallout from the controversy. After all, the accusations led to serious consequences for CBC. Their head coach was suspended, and the team lost its right to host the conference championship, which was originally supposed to be played on their home court. Instead, the game was moved to a neutral site at Capilano University. After securing the championship, McKenzie's dominant performance reignited debates about transgender participation in women's sports. Some praised the player for excelling despite the backlash, while others argued that the athlete had an unfair advantage. CBC players responded by writing a letter to the league, accusing McKenzie and other VU athletes of launching personal attacks and making defamatory statements online. They also claimed that the controversy had led to harassment and threats against their coach. The league ultimately sided with McKenzie, reinforcing its support for transgender inclusion and taking action against CBC instead. The situation highlighted the growing divide in sports. While some institutions are pushing to include transgender athletes, others are fighting to exclude them. The debate moves forward. In the end, as Cornerstone Christian celebrated its high school playoff victory, the larger discussion continued. The issue of transgender athletes in girls' sports remains one of the most polarizing topics in the country, with legal, political, and personal battles playing out at all levels. For now, the absence of the transgender athlete at the high school game left many questions unanswered. Was it a personal choice? A decision made by the school? Or was it pressure from the media storm? Whatever the reason, the debate is far from over. With new bills, ongoing lawsuits, and continued investigations, the battle over transgender athletes in girls' sports is only getting started. As the debate over transgender athletes in girls' sports continues, where do you stand on this issue? Should schools follow state laws or federal orders when they conflict? If you found this discussion interesting, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more updates on stories that matter.